Banks are starting to warn about the economy again. When you hear those warnings, it sounds serious. Because it is. Banks do not issue public cautions lightly. They see patterns in the data before most of us do. But here is the problem. Almost nobody takes the time to explain what those warnings actually mean for you, your family, your wallet, and your daily decisions. So let's cut through the noise and talk plainly about what is really happening right now. The official numbers still say the economy is holding up. Unemployment stood at 4.3% in March 2026. Businesses have not collapsed across the board. On paper, things look relatively stable. In real life, though, it feels much different for a lot of people. You feel it every single time you push your cart through the grocery store and watch the total climb higher than it did last year. You feel it when the rent or mortgage payment comes out of your account and leaves less for everything else. You feel it at the gas pump when you fill the tank. And you feel it when the utility bill or heating costs show up unexpectedly high. Prices never actually came down after the big increases of recent years. They kept climbing, especially in the areas that hit families hardest: food, housing, and energy. As of March 2026, overall consumer prices were up 3.3% from a year earlier. Energy prices jumped 12.5% over that period, with gasoline seeing even steeper rises in recent months. Food prices rose 2.7%. Shelter costs, which include rent and homeowners' equivalent rent, were up about 3%. Those are not just abstract statistics. They show up in your budget every week and every month. When people in Washington or on television say inflation is slowing, it can sound like relief is on the way. But slowing inflation does not mean prices are falling. It simply means they are rising at a slower rate than before. For most working families, that brings very little actual relief when you are still paying noticeably more for the same groceries, the same rent, and the same tank of gas than you were a few years ago. That gap between what you earn and what everything costs creates steady pressure. When your paycheck does not stretch as far as it used to, most people do not suddenly overhaul their entire lifestyle overnight. They make the adjustment that feels most immediate and necessary. They put the difference on the credit card. Groceries go on the card. Gas goes on the card. Car repairs, school supplies, or an unexpected medical bill, they all go on the card. At first, it feels like a temporary bridge to keep things moving. You tell yourself you will catch up next month. But over time, that balance grows. Interest starts to compound, and the minimum payments become a heavier part of your monthly obligations. What began as a short-term solution turns into a long-term burden. This is exactly what banks are watching closely right now. Total U.S. household debt reached $18.8 trillion by the end of 2025, a new record high. Credit card debt alone climbed to $1.28 trillion, up $44 billion in just the fourth quarter and showing a 5.5% increase over the previous year. The average person carrying a credit card balance is now looking at thousands of dollars in revolving debt. Banks see more and more people using credit, not for vacations or big purchases, but simply to cover basic living expenses. They also see signs that spending is beginning to tighten in certain areas as families try to manage the strain. When enough people start pulling back, even a little bit, the effects move through the economy. Businesses see lower revenue, they slow down hiring or cut back on hours. Growth weakens. It does not always happen with a loud crash. Often it happens gradually. Fewer job openings, slower wage growth in some sectors, and tighter credit conditions for everyone. A bank warning does not mean the sky is falling tomorrow. It does mean the system is showing clear signs of strain. Rising debt levels combined with persistent cost pressures on consumers create a situation where a slowdown becomes more likely. And here is the part that matters most for you. When things get tighter, you and your family will usually feel it first and hardest. Not the government, not the large corporations or financial institutions. Regular working people feel the impact in their daily decisions. How far the money goes, what gets cut back, and how much stress builds up at the kitchen table. So the real question is not simply, is the economy getting worse? The more important question is, how exposed am I and my family if it does get worse? If you are depending on a single job, carrying growing credit card balances, and hoping that costs will somehow balance out on their own, you may be taking on more risk than you realize. This is why it makes sense for a stand-up man and women to shift his thinking right now, before the pressure builds further. Stop assuming that one income source will always be enough to carry everything. Start taking steady steps to build more skills, create additional streams of income, or set aside resources that give you real options and flexibility. None of this is easy. It requires consistent effort, discipline, and a willingness to learn new things even when you are already tired from the daily grind. But waiting and hoping for conditions to improve on their own often leaves you with fewer choices when the squeeze tightens. I am not standing outside this situation looking in. I am right in it with you, working, paying bills, facing the same rising costs that everyone else is dealing with. But at some point, I realized that if I wanted a different outcome, I had to start doing some things differently. That is why I began paying closer attention to how money actually works in practice. Not just how to earn a paycheck, but how to protect it, grow it, and create more than one path for it to come in. I started learning about building side income, improving skills that have value in the market, and making small but steady changes that add up over time. I'm still learning every day. I still make mistakes along the way. Some ideas work better than others. But the important part is that I am now taking deliberate action that moves me toward greater independence instead of simply hoping the broader economy stays comfortable. At the end of the day, no one can control every shift that happens in the larger economy. Markets rise and fall. Policies change. Costs move in directions we cannot always predict. What you can control is your own preparation. You can control how honestly you look at your situation today. You can control the small, consistent actions you take this week, this month, and this year to build more security for your family. A responsible man does not wait for perfect conditions or for someone else to fix things. He faces the reality in front of him with clear eyes, then gets to work on what he can influence. Take an honest look at where you stand. Then decide on one practical step you will take this week, whether that is tracking your spending more closely, learning a new skill, starting a small side effort, or cutting one unnecessary expense to free up cash. Those small actions repeated over time create real independence. They reduce the hold that debt and uncertainty have over your life, and they put you in a stronger position no matter what the economy does next. That is how you move forward in uncertain times, not with fear, but with steady, determined action. The best investment you will ever make is still in yourself, in your skills, your knowledge, your discipline, and your ability to adapt and lead when it counts. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, take that first step today. Your future self and your family will thank you for it.